Welcome to the Buckeye Business Builders Lunch and Learn, hosted by Eiler Networking and Computing. Our mission at Buckeye Business Builder is to cultivate a dynamic and supportive business community in Northeast Ohio. We are committed to connecting local professionals, fostering valuable relationships, and providing opportunities for growth and success. Through networking, collaboration, education, we aim to empower businesses and contribute to the economic vitality of our region. Today, we have Adam Noll with us to discuss property and casualty insurance 101. Adam, take it away.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Samantha. I have a presentation that I'll have for you guys on Property and Casualty 101. I know you guys are all excited to hear about insurance, so I will try to keep it very high level and simple. A little introduction. My name's Adam Noll. I took over the Adam Noll agency from a previous owner. Her name was Laura Buck. So the agency's been around since 2000. This is our third year that we've had the agency. So we're just a local agency here in Avon Lake, right at 83 in Walker. So we can service all of Ohio, but really, we understand property and casualty insurance that we'll go over is everyone is pretty much required to have it. If you have a driver's license, you have it. If you have a mortgage, you own a home, you have to have it. The big thing that we focus on is making sure you understand why you have it, what you're there to protect, and some little nuances associated with it. So those are the things that we're going to kind of cover as we go through everything. Okay. So what is P&C? That's short, obviously, for property and casualty. Most people understand the whole property side, where it protects your physical assets. So that's your home, that's your auto, your motorcycle, your landlord policies, all of your stuff. Let's say if you're a renter, even your life with life insurance and things like that. The other side of it is more on the casualty side. This is something that I don't say, it just doesn't necessarily always get covered. And that is more for the liability protection, which is always for the other person. So there are situations where you can get in an accident or somebody can get hurt, and there is casualty insurance associated with the insurance that you have, and that is there to help protect you so you don't have to pay anything more out of pocket. And we'll dive into that a little bit here shortly. The idea is we want to make sure that we have both things covered for you. And that's why you have the insurance, is just to make sure that not only is the property covered, but also all of your stuff and, quite honestly, your assets and things like that are covered. Okay. So, why does it matter? Okay. Obviously, on a storm damage, the example I gave, having the right property insurance there will help protect for any losses that may come. Simple and easy one is a homeowner's policy. If you have a homeowner's policy, and let's say there's a severe storm, tornado, and it takes away the home, hopefully it never happens. The idea of insurance is it's a pool of resources, so you aren't responsible for paying for the replacement on the house. So if you had a house that was worth, rebuild cost was $400,000. If you didn't have insurance, you would have to pay that $400,000 out of pocket to replace that home. The idea of having insurance is you're only responsible for the deductible. So let's say you had as an example, $1,000 deductible. You would only be responsible for paying the $1,000, and then the $399,000 it takes to rebuild the home would be covered then by the insurance company. So the idea of why you have insurance is to protect for situations that may come up that you do not have to pay fully out of pocket for those repairs or replacements. Same goes for, as you can see over there on the auto side, if you got in a car accident, cars, has $10,000 in damage, you don't have to pay the $10,000. You just pay your deductible, and then the rest would be covered by insurance. So that's kind of the premise of what insurance is there for. It's to protect you so you don't have to pay those very, very big payments for repair or replacement on what we're trying to protect. On the other side, we talked about the liability coverage or the casualty. And so, as an example, why you have that casualty is if you are in a car accident, and let's say you rear-ended somebody, you hit somebody in front of you, and the person in front of you had to have, they had severe whiplash, they needed to get on an ambulance ride, get to the hospital, and then get tests, have to do physical therapy, and had to miss work. All of those things have to be covered by the at-fault party. So who was the one that hit them? So if you added all of those up, so the hospital ride, the ambulance ride, the medical tests and things like that, then going to physical therapy and missing work, that can add up relatively quickly. Great, and the idea is if that is, let's just say, $100,000, we want to make sure that you have the correct liability limits to cover it. So if you didn't have enough liability limits, let's say you only had $50,000, well, your insurance would only cover its limit, which is $50,000, leaving a gap of $50,000 that you may be responsible for paying. So those are kind of high level of what the two things are there for and why it matters. So property, think of damage, physical damage to the property itself, whether that's the home, the auto. If you had a rental and there was a fire and we needed to replace your stuff, that's the physical property, physical damage associated with it. And then on the other side, it's more of the liability. So if as a result of having an accident or an incident that you were responsible for, we have liability insurance to protect the other person so they can make sure they have everything covered in the sense of damages from being hurt, as well as you not having to pay anything out of pocket to cover that. So we briefly kind of talked about some of this, right, from how the homeowner, how a homeowner policy works. Their same applies for both. We have dwelling protection, which is the cost of the home itself. So if the house did have a repair or need to be replaced, we want to make sure we have the right dwelling protection to cover it. So we talked about that tornado that took away that $400,000 home. We would want to make sure the dwelling protection was at least $400,000 to be able to replace the property if it was not salvageable or we had to repair it or replace it completely. Next, that's also included in the homeowners. We have personal property. So that represents all of your stuff. So think of it as if you were to move into the home, everything that came out of that U-Haul that you put in the house would represent your personal property. So that's your stuff, your TV, your furniture, clothing, all of those things. Also included in the homeowners, believe it or not, is that family liability limit. So we talked about it with the auto accident. There's also that liability limit that's there for the homeowner. So if, let's say you had an animal, a dog, friendly dog, and it got off the leash and went down the street and accidentally bit somebody, and that somebody had to get stitches, had to, go to the hospital and things like that, you would be liable if they sued you for those costs. So then the idea is you have those liability limits to cover those losses and things like that. Other little things that are included that many don't necessarily know about is like additional living expenses, which means if your home was not habitable, let's say the tornado, the example we're using, the tornado took away the house, you obviously can't live in the house. So we would provide additional living expenses to put you up in a temporary housing until that home is repaired and fixed. So those are, there's other little, coverages and things like that, but those are just some little things that are involved with the homeowners that maybe not everyone knows is there. If we kind of went down to the auto policy, there's repair and replacement of the vehicle, which would fall under your comprehensive and collision deductibles. So if your car was in an accident, or it was stolen, or had a hailstorm or things like that, those are coverages there to help replace the vehicle or repair it if necessary. There's rental car coverage. So if your car is in the shop, we give you the ability to have a rental car while your car's in the shop. There's also medical payments involved. So if you are ever injured in an at-fault accident, you, the driver, there's medical payments and things like that. And then we've already kind of discussed those liability limits. So those are kind of the high level things there. And then there's also, we talked about liability limits. Each policy has its maximum limit available. If you were looking for coverage above that for liability purposes, there's something called an umbrella policy, which is excess liability protection. So if you were, let's say, a high net worth person, let's say you had multiple properties and your net worth was $4 million, we would always suggest that you have your assets covered by your liability limits. That way, if there ever was a severe liability claim, the insurance would cover all of those costs, so you would never have to pay anything out of pocket. Okay, some benefits and things that we would be able to cover if you wanted to discuss it. Bundling is always best. You get more savings associated with it. The more items you put together, the better bundling associated with it, and you get better perks. Typically, if there was a multiple loss scenario, let's say there was a home fire and your car was parked in the garage and it was a total loss, so everything went, including the cars. If you have them all under one company, the idea is you would only be paying one deductible. So the homeowner's policy would cover the loss of the vehicle in that situation. Obviously, bundling, you get to work with one agent. It's better for us to then advise you for coverage gaps or coverage changes that may be there, because we can all see all of the coverages that you have. So that's just another benefit with it. Some minor, these are some common mistakes that we have seen. One of the big things is choosing cost over coverage, where somebody may feel as though they wanted to save money or wanted to pick the lowest cost of insurance. What we like to say is you can get good insurance that usually isn't cheap, and you can get cheap insurance that usually isn't good. So there's kind of the teeter-totter associated with it to make sure that you have the correct coverage. So sometimes to work with savings tactics, you can hire deductibles, which then means you have to pay more money out of pocket. And then if you have to pay more money out of pocket, sometimes a claim will not be covered because the deductible is greater than the claim amount. Other things that can happen is liability only on an auto policy, which means you forgive collision and comprehensive coverage. So if your car was in an accident, you would not have coverage to repair the vehicle. We talked about liability claims being greater than the liability limits. So if you had state minimum coverage at $25,000 liability, and there was a $50,000 liability claim that you were at fault for, there could be a potential that you'd pay $25,000 out of pocket in a situation we kind of talked about earlier. Um, some other mistakes is not notifying or kind of keeping your agent in the loop about whether you're getting married or even getting divorced, or kids moving out of the house, or adding or removing homes and autos. Those are important for us to know so we can make sure we have what's called insurable interest. So if you own the property or own the vehicle and that insurable interest is no longer there because it's sold or, given, whatever that is, then we want to make sure that we have that removed. So you're removed or added, depending, so we have the insurable interest protected. And then other eligible discounts and things like that. So if there's any changes or anything done to the home, whether it's an addition, remodel, those are important to let us know so we can see if we need to increase the dwelling coverage, or if you purchase any new toys or things like that. We just want to make sure we have everything protected and covered. Oh, this is why choose us? The thing is, as I said, we're a small local business. So we market ourselves as the Adam Noll agency. You can see behind me, most of our writing is done through Allstate. That's their logo. We try to market ourselves in the sense that we hold ourselves to a higher standard than what Allstate is. And that's why we have our where coverage meets care. There's a lot of information and a lot of things that happen with insurance. We obviously deal with this every single day, and we want you to be educated and understand why we talk about the things that we talk about. So that way we can make sure that we have the right protection for you specifically. That's what the whole individualized insurance solution. Every single person we talk to, our insurance coverages are based directly upon them and their needs and what they need to make sure is protected and covered. One thing too, our phone number is right here, the 440-930-8570. We are a small business, so there's 5 of us that work in the office. So we don't have a call center. So when you talk to us, it's literally us. There's only 5 of us in here. We are small but extremely mighty when it comes to making sure that we have your protection. And we value having that open communication, because the better we get to know you, the better we can help you, with your insurance needs and things like that.
Fantastic, Adam. Thank you so much for being here today and sharing with us all the information that you were able to um, put to light for us. Um, is there anything else that you would like to discuss? Again, he has his phone number up, or he just took it out.
Sorry,
Sorry.
I can put
No,
it.
no,
No,
it's
that's totally
okay.
good. I can throw it in the
Um,
chat or anything if anyone needs it.
but again, feel free to reach out if you have any other questions, concerns. Um, I'm sure his team would be happy to help however they can. Join us again next month on December 4th with Cynthia Gore. I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your week and a great month of November. And thank you again for joining. Have a great day, everybody.
Thanks.